Next, I would like to introduce Dr. Rick Flinders. His book is titled The Santa Rosa Reader. It's a personal anthology, and it is about the history of Community Hospital, or it's now called Sutter. Let me tell you a little bit about Dr. Rick. The Santa Rosa Reader, published by also this is very interesting, that it is published by the Sonoma County Medical Association. It's a personal anthology from the Santa Rosa Family Medicine Residency by Dr. Rick Flinders, a family physician who trained there and later became its director. The anthology includes essays, reviews, and reflections from Dr. Flinders' long career in one of the preeminent family medicine training programs in the United States. The selection of writings for this book spans the past 40 years and provides temporal landmarks in the history of our specialty. Mostly, they offer glimpses into the extraordinary process of training, teaching, and becoming a family physician. All the proceeds from this book goes to the residency program. I would like to now introduce Dr. Rick Flinders.
Good evening. Thank you, Jean, for all of your promotion and support, and thank you, Ari, for having us all. It's a privilege to be here this evening. I'm going to read from the collection something called My First Patient. It was a quiet knock on my door that morning. So quiet, in fact, that I wondered if I was dreaming. Maybe if I went back to sleep, it would go away. Nope. There it was again, soft but persistent. And this time, I knew it really was a knock, and it really was on the front door of my one-room cabin. What I didn't know was that I'd be hearing that knock for the rest of my life. I got up, tired, rumpled, and pulled open the door. A young woman I'd never seen before stood there, barefoot, and wearing the simple white linen dress of the campesina, as a woman who works the land is called in rural Paraguay. She was probably no more than 16, but in her eyes was the look of a mother and something else. Distress. In her arms, she held an infant. Chemembu ohasu. My baby is sick, she said in her native Guarani. I barely understood her, but I knew it wasn't good. I looked at her baby. Face gray, eyes open, too sick to cry. What was I supposed to do? Back then, I wasn't a doctor. Heck, I hadn't even taken any pre-med courses. I was just a liberal arts major who had dropped out of Berkeley in order to get an education, as I explained to my incredulous father. Now, I was the strange gringo, Peace Corps volunteer, living alongside a dirt road in the middle of the Paraguayan subtropics, among 100 or so peasant families, trying to help them literally hack a living from the jungle. It was 30 miles to the nearest highway, 300 miles to the nearest hospital. This young mother had walked most of the night from her home deeper in the jungle to get to me. I was her last resort. She was out of options. There were no medicines, there were no doctors, and all the home remedies and grandparents' ministrations obviously hadn't worked. Why not try the strange gringo? Jaha, let's go, I said, and motioned to my Honda 90 Peace Corps motorcycle, just outside the front door. I didn't know what else to do, but I couldn't do nothing. So I helped her onto the back of my motorcycle, where she clung, sobbing, one hand clutching my waist and the other clutching her baby. And we headed for the crossroads where my little jungle road intersected a highway. The highway was just another dirt road, but at least it saw an occasional vehicle, and one of these might transport her to the capital city, 300 miles away. A half hour later, almost within sight of the highway, the sobs in my ear suddenly changed to a wail. I knew what it meant. I stopped and got off. Then I held the young mother in my arms. Speechlessly, in language that was neither English nor Guarani, I told her I was sorry. We got back onto my motorcycle, turned around, and headed back. And for the next half hour, I listened to the flood of a mother's grief. Ceaseless, inconsolable, uncomprehending. The grief was hers and that of millions of mothers before her, across countries and cultures and time. That sound and her knock on my door that morning has followed me through all the intervening years. It spoke to me when, after returning home, I changed my major from liberal arts to pre-med. It guided my choice to train in family medicine when I could have opted for other residencies. It is a gentle reminder when the frustrations of providing care in a seemingly deaf and broken healthcare system pile up. I sometimes wonder if I shouldn't have chosen something easier. But she always clears up my doubts. I know now that she was my first patient and will remain with me until the day I see my last. Even now, if I close my eyes, I can still hear her.
That part of the book was one of my favorite parts, besides Dr. Rick's trip of practicing medicine in Japan is also pretty fascinating. But I think I love the beginning of the book. Are there any questions? Here you go.
Did you say that the book was a history of memorial? Did you say that the book was a history of
Well, we wrestle with that word. Actually, I call it an anthology because it's a collection of stories, of glimpses that isn't exactly a chronologic history of the program, but stories and observations and experiences which grow out of practicing and teaching family medicine there and elsewhere. If you have a family doctor in Sonoma County, it's very likely they trained in this program.
Yeah, that sounds really interesting. Have you thought about doing a book that was an actual history?
Not until I published this, and a lot of people have asked if we wouldn't do something. It's a more ambitious project because to do justice to the history of this program would require a lot more research. I've been there uninterrupted for 37 years. I trained here in 1977 as an intern, graduated in 1980, and I've been here ever since, full-time practice and on the faculty. But a history of the program would be a wonderful story of the tradition and the history of what it is to be a family doctor.
Next one. Your next book.
Next book.
Yep, we'll wait for that one. Any other questions?
It's not a question, it's just a comment. I was really moved by your story. You wrote it well, you read it well, and thank you.
Thank you. Thank her.
Very nice. Any other questions? I think everybody is pretty awestruck by that one
It
story.
gets lighter as the book goes on. But again, that's actually the prologue of the book. It's how I came to family medicine, and it wasn't an epiphany. It was something that grew on me. And looking back, I wrote this story 15 years after the experience, after I'd been in practice for 10 years. And And when it dawned on me, where did the spark, where did the need, where did the inspiration for this happen? And most physicians, I think, have experiences, have stories that confirm why we do what we do.
One last question?
When community hospital went to Sutter, that was a big deal, and I'm wondering if you addressed that in your book, and if
Yes.
you ruffled any feathers when you did that.
I ruffled a few feathers in my time. I cherish the notion of a community hospital, and I served it for 20 years before we finally went from the county lease to Sutter. I have to say, as much as I regretted the loss of a community-supported hospital, we simply couldn't afford it. Sonoma County was going broke. Sutter stepped in and saved not only the residency program of the hospital as well, and of all the suitors for the lease of running the hospital, Sutter has been the most user-friendly, compassionate, and to continue our mission of the underserved in Sonoma County. They have remained true to that, and to the training of the physicians who do that.
Thank you very much.